So can you see this window all right?
Yep, the Google Slides is there. Just as an FYI. Yep, I can see the slides, not the notes. Just as an FYI, I just started the recording as well. I think we can get started whenever you are ready, Carter or Franco potentially. Could you check and let us know whether anyone from the London office is joining, whether we're waiting for someone or whether we can get started?
So I don't know if there's anyone else. So like you said, myself, Franco, perhaps Nicholas as well. But maybe wait a couple of minutes, if that's okay, because not everybody is in the room at the moment.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Nicholas, are you joining the show and tell? Yeah, Nicholas is joining.
All right, cool. Let's give it a couple minutes and get started then.
Okay.
So I don't think anyone from Ashford is joining due to the internet troubles.
Yes, I saw that email.
Okay, perfect.
So as I have a lot of slides, probably it would be better to start now, and maybe those who will connect later, if they will be, can just start where they came.
Yeah, I'm happy to
What do you think?
To kick off now. We are recording it anyway, so if anyone does miss anything, we can always share the recording with them. So that's
great.
Not a problem. All right, take it away.
Okay. So hello everyone who is watching it as a recorded video or who is here with me. So I'm going to tell you about our experience with creating front end on Jackson's fencing website. I hope some of you have a chance to check the site itself and to see how it looks. For those of you who didn't have that possibility, I can say that this website has e-commerce, as you probably know from the previous presentations, and it was kind of more complex for us than previous project. So I would say that we learned a lot from making this website, and I put some thoughts from that experience to this presentation. So let's start. Why we actually should care about any structure on front end. So the reasons are pretty much the same as for any development, not only the client side. So we can save some time on development, as making structure take for us some time at the beginning, but then with expanding it, we have a lot of pleasant things about which I will speak now. So this is also maintainability, meaning then that project can be more easier extendable and maintainable for any other person who joins the project and trying to understand what is going on and how it works. It's also good for scalability because a project with well done structure can be easily extended, and so the new functionality will have its own place in the project better than on badly structured project. It's of course legacy potential, as you can see on this image. Perhaps even things with really good design and initial idea will have no future if they will not be done with thinking about how it can be reused, how it can be so if we done similar project, we can take some part of it, some components, and put into new project, which will cut us some time. It's of course more pleasant work with code because you can search things faster, and in the upcoming slides I will show what does it mean for me. And of course you can learn from it and improve your experience in the next development projects. So you can take something useful and recreate structure or make even better structure for future work. So the previous experience for us was pretty much plain, as you can see on styles image. They were like created as we go. So if we need something, we add it, and a lot of functionality was really situated inside a CSS, which made this file long and hardly maintainable as a result. At the right hand, you can see scripts, which also have quite plain structure. We had a folder for components. We had require.js including the scripts, so it was structured at some way, but not really perfect. And so let's see more closer what are the problems of this structure and of this solution. In fact, the biggest problem to me is long files, which is really bad when we are speaking about deliver a project, and if we will plan to extend the functionality, we would probably do it the same way. So we just will be continue populating it with new code because it's just too hard to refactor such things on the post-release stage. So I would say that long files is really pain, and it is also hard to take some piece of functionality from this big file. As a follow-up for long, big amount of lines of code lines in files, I can say that structure of files itself also wasn't very good. What I mean is that writing code for different components like that will then results in the situation where you need to to look through all your styles and check these pieces if you want to export this anywhere. So I guess that's like a pitfall of this approach, and On the second image, I'm showing that this naming isn't really probably not so bad, but if we are speaking about text block row, it gives us some idea about where this can be used, but we don't know for sure in which component is this used. So we probably will have problems with extending this. So if we, let's say, need to change some functionality in one component which uses this class, and we put here some functionality, and then we just suddenly realize that this component is used in another component, and these another components have some troubles because of this change. So I'm sorry for probably long explanation of this and probably mixed stuff, but I hope the main idea is here. And the last thing on this slide is generalization, as we in some places just put some constructor functions, some logic to general things, which isn't really good, because even if we need to put it on every input, some styling and some extending functionality by iCheck plugin, even if we need that, we need to do it wisely and to assign it to some specific selectors, more specific than this one, because we would definitely have some issues while extending this functionality in future. As you can see here in to do, we have some comment that we need to check all below code if there will be issue with hate. So I guess that would be really hard to narrow down any issues with such approach. So let's see what else is here. And of course, high level of coupling, what means that roughly the same situation is here as in the previous slide, that we are putting scroll on link click function on some specific links, but we can easily add component with such link and even don't know that this function is assigned to this link. So that's just not really good, and it bounds our components together and functionality together in the way that we couldn't just cut some component or take some component functionality and put it somewhere else. So low coupling is the key, is key of structure that we were wanted to create. And the same thing here. I'm not going to speak about every piece of code with many details, but you can just see that we are putting some different functions with regards to what select do we have, and this is like okay for small solutions, but in general it's not good options. So as injections, we just created different files and different subscriptions for almost every component, and this problem was much easier to avoid. And probably the last thing is that we weren't able to create enough publishing tasks, and some work was needed. So we made actually a lot of manual changes as we haven't enough Go tasks for that. And as a result of deadlines, timings, we haven't made minification and building up CSS files or and JS, so we haven't built in front end well enough. And as a solution in Jackson's, we used modular component structure. So we put common things aside for styles, so they can be copied to other project without any relations to components. And roughly the same thing for structure, for style, for scripts. Sorry. So for scripts, we also have separate files which aren't much rely on each other, but there are some shared JS modules which can be used among different components. We also assign a specific class with component number for each component. So I mean CSS class. So one can use this class to specify styles and scripts and a lot of stuff with just one number. We also have better file structure and introduce some shared JS modules, which I will show you later. And we're also improved publishing integration, introduced code minification and amplification, and improved documentation, which I believe is also very important step forward for creating a project of a bigger scale. So the first one is modular component structure. As you can see here are screenshots of styles, scripts, and CS HTML. So there are only a few folders with our components because there are just too many of them in the project. But so this is just for reference. And here you can see also that multiple dots mean that we have a lot of components here. Sadly, we hadn't enough time to make a structure of folders here the same way as we done it for our styles. So as you can see, it's probably a bit excessive, but I believe that it's much easier to support and to extend any functionality if you have separate style sheet for every component. And we have some common layer, which means that we can reuse it, and a specific layer, which probably needs some refactoring, but in general, we can see that here some colors defined specific for the project and stuff like that. And also we created styles empty file with some basic information in it. Sadly, we hadn't much time for describing whole structure here, but I also thought that we have some time for making description for every style sheet here in common folder at least. I believe we have some descriptions, some comments in each of this file, so that would enough for this stage, I guess. The next improvement is that specific resources for each component. So we have a component file with CS HTML resolution for our components with some references and server job, and we include class with component number to the very parent of component, which allow us to make such structure to specify some specific rules for only this component. So let's say images will be changed with this rule only inside this component and will not affect any other components. So I guess that's really a good idea, and it showed it in well light for us. So it worked well when we were developing Jacksons. And for JavaScript, it's roughly the same principle, but we are finding any stuff we need inside the container. So we are selecting container and then searching inside of it. Also, you can see here how we are requiring our shared modules. So it's pretty handy. The next thing is like more like bonus. So as I've mentioned it before, with this approach, we can see that all files which we can search through both Solution Explorer or Visual Studio itself and receive fast response with search results on where we can change anything and what files are related to this component. And similarly, the same approach was used in SafeCore with creating our folders for data sources and components. So if we just have enough motivation to follow naming convention, we will then have a lot of good stuff and saving time. The next good thing, I believe that we have much better JavaScript file structure. So we have main flow function, which holds our main flow, obviously, and so in this function we can see what functionality is going on, and in which order. All functions are declared in separate block. All variables are declared also in separate block, and we also require any shared modules on the top of the file. Of course, probably some more comments will be better, but the function naming is quite understandable, I guess. And on the right hand, you can see, on the right side, you can see the example of shared JS module for right panel. So this is a panel which slides off the screen from the right side and show different content based on different components. So as it has very close design for all three components, we are using one module which has public modules, which has public methods show panel and hide panels, and it can show only one panel at a time as we return it as a singleton instance. So I guess it wasn't really bad idea to make the code as it is here. And it, of course, has some meaningful description about for what purpose it was designed. So the next, and the next thing is level up for publishing, because we have much more bulk tasks for everything, for minifying, for having some resolving images and stuff like that. And we integrate required tasks into our into our continuous integration. As you can see here, we are minifying scripts and styles in the end, and it allows us to be as flexible as possible with a lot of these tasks. So as you can see, front-end publishing task is much longer here, and it describes all logic which it involves. So it isn't only about JavaScript and styles, but it also introduced some areas, publishing, fonts, images, stuff which we don't need to do manually. Meaning that if anyone just commit their changes into files, he can be sure that after publishing, everything will be put into proper places, and no one has troubles with getting up solution after pulling. And just a short note about our modification. We used quite a few Gulp modules for that, and the main idea is that we are minifying and concat our CSS files, which mainly stands for our third-party plugins, in one stream, named CSS stream. We put together all our SCSS files into SCSS stream and then merge them into resulting styles min SCSS. It allows us to cut some space, about 30%, I guess, and roughly the same thing for scripts and builders. So we have some builders component which are ported piece of work from the old website, and we put their scripts loading into different layout, so they are loaded separately and don't affect general website loading. So as you can see here, we have different tasks for minifying JavaScript for builders and for required scripts, and then put them all together into general task. And as a bonus, I also wanted to show how we are connecting them on our default layout. So we are just checking if environments isn't live, we including debug version, and if it's live, we are including minified styles. So about this implementation, I couldn't really comment this because it wasn't created by myself, but I just decided it would be a good idea to reference it here. So the last thing I want to talk is documentation, and obviously it can be a pain to document something in conditions when you have rough estimates, when you are hurrying up, but it of course have a bunch of obvious pros. So I'm going to touch them quickly. It allows to other programmers quicker get themselves on a project, to understand what is going on and to understand the state of a project. It allows us to reuse experience between project and to plan our next structures and next architect solutions better by seeing what was done and how it was done and what issues does it have. And we can, in any time, if the documentation is actual and well maintained, we can see in any time our project states. Our project state, meaning that we can understand on what stage the project is, instead of looking into sources and trying to understand how it is organized, which is sometimes just impossible. We can see some documentation and understand what is going on. And of course, as a minuses for creating documentation is that it requires time for maintenance. and it requires responsible person. It requires some additional time allocated, and so on. Another thing is that using proper tools is quite important. So I just put here some tools which I think is really good for creating documentation. First one is creating ER diagrams, and here is some simple instrument for that, which I've had a chance to work with on my past experience. Also, it's of course creating MD files, which should contain some descriptive things, some descriptions for your structure and why that things are done that way, and why this is and why these things are done this way. And of course, we shouldn't forget our best tool. We should live, because it doesn't require many time for that, but we need to remember that we must create it as we go, and not in the end of project, not commenting code which you just forgot about, but create it right after finishing some piece of work, when the memory is still fresh. Here are some examples for Draw.io. It's a very handy tool with online tools, with integration to Google Drive and some other places, with a very good set of instruments. So it much like Microsoft Visio. So if anyone is familiar, I guess everyone does. So you have an idea what it is. And with having something like that, with abstract layer of what has been done on project, is just very good for quickly understanding how it works, and where it can have troubles, or how it can be extendable. So I believe this is crucial. Sadly, we haven't much work done in this direction on Jackson's, but I hope the situation will be better in future. The next example is a tool for creating MD files. So just a quick demonstration what can be done and how it can be formatted. It's an online tool with the same URL, so you can try it after you can check presentation and try it. And some examples on how we create documentation in our project. So here are two examples on how we describe things on our styles and in our JavaScript. This is quite a complicated piece because it's related to BC001 component, which is brand landing overlay, which should be video on desktop, full screen video on desktop, and just a short section in header on mobile. So and we need to hide it based on stored cookie values. So that involves a lot of twisted logic, which is just better to document right after changing something than to dig into it after time has passed and understanding what has been done here. Also, I personally think that including some tasks number can also help if the solution in code isn't really obvious. So just to give person possibility to open task and read, but putting some extra line in code in case that this line will be enough to understand what is going on here. And I also put a screenshot from our conference for Jackson's. We have a lot of useful stuff here. Some entries like deploying and how to set up local environment, solution definition with different information on project. And I believe that this is a big step forward. Having something like this allows to any person just start step by step, and by including here any additional problems that could happen, we just saving time, and not only for person who tries to onboarding, but also for those persons who will be asked by this newcomer. So the next like ending part of my presentation is about how we can improve ourselves and what hasn't been done smooth. The first thing is we should reject any half measures. So if we decided conventions, if we collaborate on conventions and agreed that we are going that way, we need to strictly follow all rules and make our project solid. So it will be the same along the way. I can say that on Jackson, some components are still having another naming convention or not have component name in their container elements. So there are still some things which were missed, or like we had some really rough estimates, so it was missed. But I can say that saving 2-3 minutes here, you will be you need to be ready to sacrifice 2 hours later. So that's from my point of perspective is really crucial to follow all rules. Also, same thing is about allocating time for refactoring and removing to-dos. I guess we have done some refactoring for components that required it most, but we still have some to-dos, and it is better to not put them aside and just forget about them. It's good idea to quickly to make this as quicker as possible, to just remove to-dos, revise them, and structure them with pointing date when this to-do was included, was added, so that give us better understanding how old is to do and can we remove it easily or not, and stuff like that. And just one short thing about minification. I can see that I can say that we done it very close to our go live date, and it just takes some nerves and risky work to be done. So that probably needs to be tested in advance and checked before go live date is here. And also I will be as quick as I can about our issues with require just setting up. So I am not really good at it, but when we needed require config on quite late stage. We understand that our search pages are not loading because they are just working too long and have too big delay. So I had to put here short config with at least one parameter, but it looks ugly, and I believe that this is very important to think about such things in advance and put config as a separate file, like it is set in documentation on documentation for require.js. And about main.js, we have a quite plain structure where each next component is executing after previous one. And if something goes wrong here, everything down will be, so the site will be broken, and we just have JavaScript error in console. Of course, that's not a very good approach. That give us possibility to see issue and to right after that understand where it comes from. But of course, I believe there should be another better way of structuring this. So I put this as a weak as a weak side of our current structure injections, and I hope in future we will improve it. I guess that's all, and I will be glad to hear your questions. Thank you for your attention. Guys?
Thanks, Sergey. It was really good.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
No one has any questions?
I have a question. You showed Draw.io website, and in which format and where do you save diagrams for your project?
So I can show you. You can save it in multiple formats, but you need to attach it. If you want to use integration with Google Drive, you need to attach it to your Google Drive entry, and you can then be able to download it in. I personally, I used PDF format, I believe. So.
But as I understand, the purpose is to write documentation that should be shared. So do you have any convenient way how to work with this website and share everything across the team?
You can download it as a PDF file. So you can share it as, you can export it in many formats, but you can share it as any Google, any Google Drive or any Google Drive document, basically. What you need to give access is click this share button and get shareable link for anyone. But the only thing is that person who will want to open this document will need to open it in Draw.io application. Is it the answer something you expect, or does it answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your question, Anton. Much appreciated. So, guys, any questions?
Another one question.
Yeah.
Why do you decided to use uclification? Are you afraid that someone will stole your script code?
Of course. I think that this is much better for security reasons to uglify. your code. And I believe that this cuts some additional space. So yeah, it is harder to debug on live website, but it cut you some extra kilobytes. Okay, anyone?
No, I don't think you've got any more questions here. No questions here. Yeah, no questions here.
Okay, no thank you for your time, guys.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.